Somebody asked Michelangelo how he made such beautiful sculptures, and he just said, I simply take a rock and I take away all the parts that aren't David. And I think of that sometimes when I think about recovery coaching and the recovery coaching journey is that as I'm, filling the role of recovery coach, time and time again, I keep on thinking, I need to take away the parts that aren't recovery coach.
I was like coming out of that first 5 day training, I was completely like intimidated, overwhelmed, thinking, I don't even know what does that mean to have an open-ended question, and what does that mean for to develop discrepancy? What is the language of change? I don't get it.
I was like 28 years into abstinence-based recovery, and I was told it's either all or none. There's no dabbling at all. As a recovery coach, you kind of hold space for anything that's going to happen. So think of a guy who's been 27 years into abstinence. One of my first recoveries calls me up and he said, I just want to use heroin socially.
I really had a serious case of imposter syndrome. I was happened to be in the training that I took was with addictions doctors and medical doctors and therapists and just a lot of professionals in the room. Some with lived experience and some without.
And every cell in my body was bursting, going, you can't do that. And I tried to summon this recovery coach and go, look, you have to hold space for this too. So I said, okay, let's give it a try. But let's keep you alive. Let's, or you can, do you have naloxone? Are you going to be using with friends? Do you have the lifeguard app? Just making sure that, you're going to be alive next time you come and see us again.
I felt like I was really outranked and I had, not much to offer. So I have had to, but what was really interesting was the one medical doctor that was in the room actually shared in through the course of the week that he suffered from imposter syndrome, which I thought was like awesome because it allowed me the freedom to realize that we're all just people, we're all just human beings stumbling our way through life, and that at times we do feel intimidated, we feel outranked, outclassed, and that my story still is valuable, my experience still is valuable, and that it can be used moving forward.
Let's give it a try. You're in charge here. If you're wanting to reduce your intake, that's forward movement. As a recovery coach, I have to hold it. But I tell you, every cell in my body is screaming, what are you talking about? He ended up giving up altogether. It didn't work. His experiment wasn't quite as he had planned. But, uh, but that was a big learning curve for me. I really had to hold space in that.
So that was kind of cool to understand that, right? And I would say that probably the one thing that I had to kind of quiet was that advice giver, that 6-year-old on the inside, that when somebody said something that I wanted to, I wanted to have the answer. I wanted to put my hand up and say, I know, I know, I know. And, I wanted to give the answer. So, I had to quiet that because that's not a coach approach at all. That's the advice giver. Hey, I want to tell you what you need to do and how you need to do it.
Another time this is when I was first starting to charge for recovery coach services. I really got to make this worth, the time here. God really got to give him his money's worth. And so I was shoving papers and like,
Another thing that I would say that I didn't have to stop doing, but that I had to learn how to do, was to, kind of set a direction for the session, meaning that, yes, what's on your mind? What do you want to talk about? But what do you want to focus on for this time together? And really mapping out a plan for the time that we have, right? And because that hour goes by real quick, or half an hour, or whatever it is that we're set up for.
Recovery capital assessments, wheels of life, all of this paperwork. I wanted to get him busy doing all kinds of stuff. And about halfway through that session, I went, just slow down. This is about building a relationship. This is a long-term thing. Just build a relationship first. And I kind of learned the hard way because I kind of barreled in with all the paperwork trying to justify my existence. But really, without that bedrock of strong relationship.
The idea of a coach is to, where are they at right now, and where do they want to go? So I had to learn how to get past the where are they at right now, and shift into that forward focus of where do they want to go. So yeah, those are some really great learnings that I've had to move through as a coach.
And he kind of let me know when I was piling the paperwork out. I could hear the kind of pause, and all went quiet. And I'm going, I'm doing this all wrong. And he's still a client today. So I was able to rescue that. But every time I coach, I learn something new, something I could have done better, something inside of me that thinks that wants there to be a finish line, like a place where I complete, I've arrived as a recovery coach. And the more I coach, the more I realized that there is no finish line. Just like there was no completion really for Michelangelo. I think he'd probably still be working on David today, taking off those little rough edges and polishing this and that. That's going to be my story as a recovery coach. Is there is no finish line. I never arrive as being this top-notch recovery coach. I always have to improve.
You know what? I was working with a young woman who, she just loved to tell me where she was at and what was going on in her life, and very expressive, just a darling young woman. And I loved working with her. And there were times where I felt like I don't know if I'm doing anything here. She did find her way. Like when I look back overall over the entire path, we covered off a lot of things, but it really required me to listen a lot. And there were times where I really doubted, like, am I actually doing anything here? Am I actually doing anything? I was able to work it out with my own coach as to, like, I really was uncertain, because it really feels like when you're really coaching, it feels like you're not doing anything. But it was powerful and effective.
Always seeking more education, always seeking ways to get better, because the population we're serving deserves nothing less. And they haven't been treated well. Maybe they haven't deserved it. The argument can be made, but they haven't been treated well. And the more we can bring to this game of recovery coaching, the better we can treat them, and the better their chances of making it through this thing.